1983, Hurricane, Utah. The infamous Fredbear's Family Diner has been running its course for the past few years as the main source of entertainment for all ages, serving the most authentic, delicious pizza and providing amusing and charming animatronics that are loved by the kids. Two ambitious and personally driven men named William Afton and Henry Emily decide to open a business named Fazbear Entertainment to support their families and to show their appreciation for robotics. Afton, managing the finances and handling the main portion of the diner, as Emily designed the wiring and coding for the animatronics. The animatronics are golden anthropomorphic characters named Fredbear, a large yellow bear, and Spring Bonnie, a large yellow rabbit. Emily had an only daughter named Charlotte, and Afton had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. The eldest son, Michael, his only daughter Elizabeth, and the youngest son, Evan. Life at home seemed perfect, despite Miss Afton being out of the picture. Michael constantly picked on his younger brother, always scaring him with a red fox mask and causing fear in the young child. Evan was deeply traumatized by his brother and his friends messing with him, that it caused him to be scared of the animatronics, giving him severe nightmares and hallucinations at night. His only friends were his toys, including a yellow bear plush that resembled the one from the diner. The plush was his only friend. On Evan's birthday, they celebrated at Fredbear's Family Diner, and that's where he spent a lot of his days at. Michael and his friends yet again were picking on his brother and decided to do a fun prank. They take the boy to the main stage where the animatronics were placed. "Wow, your brother's kind of a baby, isn't he?" one of Michael's friends says. "It's hilarious," Michael chimed in. "Why don't we help him get a closer look? He'll love it." "No, please!" Evan cried. The 4 other kids lift Evan and carry his flailing body towards the animatronics, ignoring the crying child's sobs. "You heard the little man. He wants to get even closer," another kid laughs. They lift Evan up in Fredbear's robotic mouth, laughing at the poor boy. "Hey guys, I think the little man wants to give Fredbear a big kiss. 1, 2... Fredbear's mouth crunches down on the child's head and upper torso. The older kids stop laughing. A harmless prank turned into a bloody mess. Evan was rushed to the hospital, where he was put in a coma and died a day later, holding the yellow plush in his arms. "I will put you back together." This event was nicknamed the Bite of 83. After the tragic events at Fredbear's Family Diner, the restaurant closed its doors. Struggling with the death of his son, Afton and Emily decide to create 2 more animatronic-themed restaurants. The location, named Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, was built in 1985 and another in 1987. During this time, in between those 2 years, 5 kids were suspected to be missing within the first location in 1985. The parents were complaining of a foul odor from the animatronics. They noticed a weird ooze from the characters, and they found it unsettling. "I don't feel my kids are safe in the restaurant," said a mother in the local newspaper. "This man in the yellow bunny costume is disturbing." These animatronics were given new and respected names: Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie the Bunny, Chica the Chicken, and Foxy the Pirate Fox. These animatronics were loved by the kids, which cost 5 lives. After a while of these complaints of odor and disgusting conditions, the location in 1985 had shut down. The location in 1987, however, had new and improved designs, given their name the toy animatronic line, named Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, and Mangled, who replaced Foxy due to the previous design being too scary. So they made the designs more child-friendly. The location had new additions to the software using detecting technology to find faces of children, but acted strange, almost aggressive towards the adults and staff. The new animatronics added to the crew Balloon Boy and the puppet. Balloon Boy, as the name suggests, gives balloons to the children. The puppet manages the prize counter and keeps an eye on the kids a lot. They have a nurturing nature to them, and that's why the puppet is favored among the kids, which is odd. The puppet is an animatronic, but seemed to be too lifelike, like it was possessed by something. Theory suggests that the puppet was in the first location and was among the other missing children. During this time, Emily's daughter, Charlotte, had been murdered in the pizzeria. But this is just local speculation. This location, however, was open for 2 weeks due to the same results of the last location. On Friday, November 13th, 1987, a security guard by the name of Jeremy Fitzgerald, who was working the night shift, moved the day shift. That Friday was going to be the last day open, one last birthday party before the doors closed. As Fitzgerald was working during the party, he noticed Mangle was acting a little strange. This new version of Foxy had a new feature, where you can take apart any piece that the younger kids, like toddlers, can play with. In my personal opinion, and in the history of the restaurant, why would anyone leave their kid alone with a potential hazard? Who knows? The guard who worked there had to do maintenance on the White Fox to fix them into their original state. As Jeremy was fixing on them, the animatronic spazzed out and bit the guard's frontal lobe. Yet another accident at the newly opened attraction. Fitzgerald was close to death but luckily survived, living his life traumatized. This was nicknamed the Bite of 87. One thing that was not known to the public was that Afton secretly had its own location, named Circus Baby's Pizza World. This site was opened in 1987 as well, but was not opened for long. The same trend for all the restaurants that had opened before. These set of animatronics were called the Fun Times, starring Circus Baby, Ballora, Funtime Freddy with Bonbon, and Funtime Foxy. These were designed by Afton himself, and were designed in an unlawful way. All the missing children were linked to him, but yet he denied everything. One thing I managed to dig up was an audio recording of what seemed to be a disclosed phone conversation between an unknown board member and Afton himself. Let's take a listen.
There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state-of-the-art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping that you could shed some light on those.
She can dance. She can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
In the phone call, they were talking about Circus Baby, the main face of the restaurant. They never mentioned what sort of system Afton put in these new and improved animatronics. This phone call was very interesting. They were talking about Circus Baby, the main face of the restaurant. But they never mentioned what sort of system Afton put in these new and improved animatronics. Afton let his daughter run around in the restaurant, but advised her not to be alone with Circus Baby. Elizabeth still begged and insisted on visiting the character, wanting to meet the robot. After some time, Elizabeth was left unsupervised. She disobeyed her father's rules and visited the animatronic. The animatronic was designed to have a compartment to capture someone if they were left in the room alone, specifically children. Baby has offered Elizabeth ice cream. Then she was captured and later killed. Afton was actually unaware of this until he checked later. He was horrified. Now only one Afton kid was alive, Michael. At this point, Michael has already moved away from his father, so he had no clue about all of this. What we will find out later is that he's going to find the bottom of this. So many murders. So many missing kids, and yet no one knew what happened. Well, my fellow listeners, I am here to present the facts and proof of who caused these murders. We all know Afton and Emily had several animatronic-themed attractions. Fredbear's Family Diner, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, Circus Baby's Pizza World. Each location ending in a child's death. Such a poor innocent soul being trapped and locked away. In total, it was unclear how many kids went missing, but 15 were theorized to be murdered. 8 of these kids had been confirmed that have died in the hands of Fazbear Entertainment. By who exactly? Who wanted all these children dead? Do you remember me mentioning the interview of the mother talking about a yellow rabbit suit being worn around the first Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria location? Well, that suit was from Fredbear's Family Diner, a Springlock mascot suit for Spring Bonnie. This suit was designed to where it could switch from an animatronic suit to a wearable suit. In order to wear the suit, you have to have a special crank which deactivates the metal gears and spiked edges, which are layered on the inside of the suit. If the spring locks were not wound up enough or are too tight, the locks will puncture through hundreds of points in your body, stabbing you. This made the suit very unsafe to wear, and yet someone knew how to wound up the spring locks. Someone knew that said technology. Who killed all those kids in the back room of the restaurant? It was William Afton himself. He was the one who murdered those children. But how did he do it? It started with Charlotte Emily herself. See, the puppet was designed specifically to watch Charlie, and the puppet was a security puppet and watched the child. Afton had trapped the puppet where it could not escape, and killed his co-worker's child in the rain and left her alone to die on her own. The puppet escaped and found the child outside in the rain and absorbed her soul. This got Afton thinking. He wondered if he could replicate souls absorbing in animatronics. So he started experimenting. The foul odor and the weird ooze coming from the animatronics? Well, Afton had stuffed those kids into the suits, hoping to achieve the same result. How each child died is how the animatronics ended up possessed. Gabriel, who possessed Freddy, died while hiding. Jeremy, who possessed Bonnie, died while fighting. Susie, who possessed Chica, died while screaming. Fritz, who possessed Foxy, had died while running. And Cassidy, who possessed a yellow version of Freddy, died an angry and vengeful soul. These poor souls were soon to haunt Afton, as each spirit had been wanting revenge and wanted payback. He had put on the Spring Bonnie suit in an attempt to taunt the children and to maybe confuse the spirits, and once again control the children. But that didn't work this time. The spring locks in the suit snapped on him, puncturing the man in many points in his body. The spirits had their satisfaction, seeing the man who murdered them finally get karma back. They locked him in the back room of the restaurant, leaving him to rot. After the downfall of his father, Michael was set on the mission to figure out what the hell happened in the Afton dynasty and what happened at the restaurants. Michael first went to Circus Babies. He knew his sister had died from one of the animatronics there. And of course, not to cause any suspicion among the company, Michael had a theme of using an alias. For each place he had gone to, he changed it. For this location, he somehow got the name Eggs Benedict. Why? No clue. But as he discovered more of his sister's death, he wanted to fix her, set her free, do anything to make up for the horrible tragedy at what happened at Fredbear's. He felt really bad about the whole incident and wasn't about to let that haunt him without having some answer. At Circus Babies, there was a room called the Scooping Room, which is where they decommissioned the animatronics at. Michael, who had been taken there, had been scooped on purpose. His innards were replaced with metal and wires, and yet he survived? After a while, his skin started to turn purple, losing some of his hair, and looked dead. And well, he dropped dead after 5 days. And for some reason, after throwing up said metal and wire, he came back alive, and was now just a walking corpse. There was no evidence about how he survived. Well, he sure did with some will and dignity. After that, he went on to the other 2 Freddy Fazbear's pizzerias as a night guard. For the first location, he went under the alias of Mike Schmidt, and his job was to watch the possessed animatronics roam around at night. The second location, he only worked one night until he got fired. This alias was Fritz Smith. He worked after the whole incident with Fitzgerald in the Bite of 87. The next location was made by the people who were intrigued by the lore in the haunting story of Fazbear Entertainment, and was built in the replica of the original restaurant, and was deemed the name Freddy Fazbear's, the horror attraction. The people running the attraction had found the old yellow bunny suit from one of the previous locations. Sound familiar? Yes, this was the suit that William Afton had died in all those years ago, and was underneath a new name. Oh, Springtrap. After Michael's time working at Freddy Fazbear's The Horror Attraction, Michael himself wanted to put an end to this. He grabbed a gasoline can and covered the whole place with flammable liquid and set it aflame, hoping this would put the end to the hurt, the end of Springtrap, the end of William Afton. He turned back and said one final goodbye to his father. What has Michael learned from all this? His father was a psychopathic killer that killed innocent children with no real motive. If anything, there was so much more evidence that had not been looked over, and some that just makes no sense. Now you're probably wondering, is there such an ending to this story? Well, no. This is all up to speculation. This whole audio podcast had been something that had been put together with an unclear timeline, and only if something that makes sense chronologically. Before I leave you with this, dear listener, an audio recording of Henry Emily had been found, and seemed to be the location from a rip-off Freddy Fazbear's attraction. Let's take a listen.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection, and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
A tragic message from Henry Emily himself, addressing the horrors and the missing children that had been mistreated and had offered to set them free. And yet, that is where our story ends. I appreciate the time that we have spent here. Oh, and one more thing.
I always come back.
This podcast was scripted, filmed, and edited by Lilian Brandenburg.